which one am I going to detect? Which one is going to live in the population? Right. It's going to be the one that's really fucking good at infecting people. So if I've got one that's really, really good at infecting people, I've got one that's pretty damn good at infecting people, and I'm detecting a lot of it. Mm-hmm. And another one comes along that's better at infecting people. What's going to happen to this population? This one over time, the one that's okay at infecting people is ultimately going to drop off, and the one that's better at infecting people is ultimately going to replace it, right?
Do these two viruses live in conflict?
No, they both infect the same people, right? Yeah. But over time, the percentage of people that get infected by strain A versus strain B, if B is better at infecting people, it's going to outcompete strain A.
For the same, so is it competing for the same number of cells that it's trying to infect?
It's in this case, it's competing for the same number of people that it infects, right?
So these two cannot exist within the same person at the same time.
Even if they do, and B is more efficient at replicating inside you, if I give you A and B at the same time, what's ultimately going to come out of you is B, because it's going to be more efficiently replicating inside you. That's one option, right? So B could be better at replicating in you. It could be better at passing from you to that person, right? So it could be more transmissible. It could be more infectious. It could be more pathogenic, right? It could cause greater disease in you. If B, let's say B kills you at a much higher rate than A does, much faster, right? Then what would you predict? If A and B infect you at the same rate, but B kills you in a day, and A maybe kills you 10% of the time after 10 days, but 90% of people survive. But B kills everybody after 1 day. What's going to happen to B?
It's going to die off.
It's going to die off, right? It's going to kill off all of its hosts super fucking quick before they can transmit it to anybody else.
Yeah.
So you'll never see B. It'll never happen. It'll kill off 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 people, and then that's it. It's gone because it burns itself out too fast. Whereas A infects you, kills a few people, but it only kills them after 10 days, and that's plenty of time for them to transmit it to somebody else.
Oh my God.
So A is more fit in the environment because it's more transmissible. If A and B only kill 1% of the people they infect, and they only kill them after 10 days, but B is super stable in the air, and A is not stable in the air, B is going to outcompete A because it's more stable and it transmits just as well. So that's what we're seeing, right? So A was the Washington strain, and B was the New York strain. And so what happened is A was good. A was infecting people and it was fine. But then B got introduced, and B infects people way better. Doesn't kill anybody else. It doesn't kill a larger percentage. It's not worse for you necessarily. It's just that if I sneeze from across the room with B, you're going to get it. If I sneeze in your face with A, you're going to get it. Right? So, but you had got to be super fucking close for A for me to give it to you. B, I can give it to you from across the room. Well, which one's going to win over time? B's going to win, right? And that's what we see. So over time, we saw the percentage of people infected with A drop off and the percentage of people with B increase. And so now what we're seeing is B is dropping off, and instead we've got C increasing, which is the UK strain.
Which is not necessarily more deadly.
It's not necessarily more deadly, but it's much better at transmitting, right? And soon we're going to start to see the South African strain, which is even better at transmitting, we think. We're not totally sure yet, but we think it's even better at transmitting than the UK strain. So over time, think about One of my favorite viruses in the whole world, herpes virus. Herpes is a phenomenally great virus.
They like rabies too.
I love rabies. Oh, rabies is my jam. But herpes virus. Why is herpes virus the family of herpes viridae? Why are herpes viruses so awesome as viruses? They're really fucking awesome because they are the gift that keeps on giving, right? Herpes doesn't kill you, doesn't kill anybody, right? But it sits around. It's really good at hanging out in your body and not getting eliminated. And it will transmit to the next person your whole life. As a virus, it's super, super efficient. It's super good at what it does, which its whole job is to reproduction in the next host.
Survival.
Right? And that's why herpes virus is so awesome. It doesn't kill you. Yeah, it may make you miserable, but it doesn't kill you, and it can transmit your entire life until you die of old age. So herpes. So the idea is that these really, really deadly viruses, like coronavirus, it's not super, super deadly, but it's not great. Ebola, right? All these really fucking terrible viruses. Those are viruses that have jumped from animals into people relatively recently, in the last, let's say, 100 years. And they are going to evolve over time to be less deadly. Because if you kill off your host too quickly,
You're not going to survive.
You're not going to survive, right? So there is an evolutionary pressure to don't kill off your host too fast. You need your host to survive long enough for you to jump to the next host.
Is that to say that Ebola will either eradicate itself or it will find a way to not kill so many people while remaining highly contagious?
Yeah, highly contagious is awesome. Not killing your host too soon is awesome.
Too soon.
Right. It's okay. You can kill your host after a couple of weeks or a couple of months or a couple of years. That's fine. Kill your host all you want. You just want to not kill your host so fast that you can't jump. You also don't want to make your host so sick that they can't interact with any other hosts. Right? If I'm a virus and I make you so sick, you can't get out of bed, you can't interact with anybody, then I'm hurting my own transmission.
Yeah.
I want you to be fully functional, like herpes. Herpes, you're fully functional.
Oh my God.
You don't feel bad. You can get out, you can go to work, you can drink out of this soda, have somebody else drink out of it. You're fully functional.
Yeah.
That's awesome from a virus point of view. I want you to be fully functional, not sick, and go out there and transmit me to everybody else.
That's fucking wild.
So over time, viruses tend to evolve to be less pathogenic. So when we see these really fucking horrible viruses like Ebola, Marburg, tick-borne encephalitis, Cassiner forest disease, Russian spring summer encephalitis, all these really terrible, horrible, deadly, deadly, deadly viruses, they've almost certainly jumped from an animal where they're not pathogenic at all to humans, where human immune system is like, I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't know how to deal with it. Okay, I'm dead now.
Yeah.
That's what happens when it jumps to humans, is because we have no idea our immune system has no idea how to deal with it.
Similarly, though, viruses need to figure out how to deal with humans in order to infect them, right? That's why there are some strains.
Yeah. So excellent point, right? So you've got bats. I love bats. Bats are my favorite animals in the world. So you got bats, right? You've got these bats that are hanging out. They're just doing their thing. They're living life. They're out there flying around. They're eating the mosquitoes or eating whatever it is they're eating, doing their thing. They've got their own viruses. It's fine. Those viruses make them sick. Maybe they don't. Maybe they do. Whatever it is, it's fine. Those viruses are part of their bodies and part of their ecosystem. So what happens then is that humans suddenly encroach on their territory. They encroach on, they start cutting down forests, or they start building houses around bat habitat, or doesn't matter what habitat it is. Or you have climate change, right? So things start getting warmer. So mosquitoes that are normally in Florida start showing up in North Carolina, and then they start showing up in Virginia, and then they start showing up in Maryland. As time goes on, they start moving further north. And those mosquitoes or those ticks or those bats or those birds or whatever it is start changing their location, and humans start moving into their locations as well. So maybe it's climate change, maybe it's population expansion, humans. But we start coming into contact with these species we've never really come in contact with before, or very rarely. So now instead of human one coming into contact with bat one once a year, suddenly it's humans 1 through 100 coming into contact with bats 1 through 1,000 5 times a year, 10 times. So we increase the frequency of contact. And that's through either the fact that there's more humans and we start seeing them more, or climate change starts moving species around more. So, okay, so if I want you to take 5d20 and I want you to roll 5d20 and I want you to tell me how many times you're going to get, add them up, you're going to get 5 out of that. In other words, 5 ones out of that. That's goddamn rare, right?
Yeah.
If you roll 5d20 one time, your chance of getting 1 on all of those is extremely unlikely. But if you roll 5d20 and you roll them 1,000 times, your chances of getting all ones is not quite as rare as if you only rolled it once. If you roll it 1,000,000 times, your chance of getting all ones is pretty good, actually. So the more times humans come in contact with bats, or human comes in contact with mosquitoes, or humans come in contact with whatever, the more times you roll those dice, the more likely it is that there's going to be a virus in that bat or in that mosquito that is able to jump to humans and successfully infect that human.
Is that to say that that's a random happenstance?
Absolutely random. 100% random, right? So HIV is a great example. If you had HIV and I took a sample of blood from you, and I checked to see all the mutations in that HIV, I would see a shit ton of different, what we call pseudo species, right? Different versions of HIV inside you. Now you pass that virus on to the next person. Only one of those 1,000,000 versions of HIV gets passed on to the other person, right? In that person, now that virus is going to replicate itself over a whole different constellation. They're going to have 1,000,000 different versions, and those 1,000,000 different versions, most of those are going to be different from your 1,000,000 different versions, right? These are called quasi-species or pseudo-species.
Okay.
So inside you is a whole constellation of different virus of, let's say, HIV. Inside the next person is a whole different constellation, let's say, of HIV. And so some of those are going to be just fucking terrible, right? Just by random chance, they're just going to be terrible viruses. They're not going to replicate for shit. Some of them are going to be fine. Some of them are going to replicate. Yeah, they're going to kick ass. And it's the same idea in bats, right? Some of those viruses in that bat are going to be completely not able to jump to a human. Some of them, yeah, they're going to be okay, but if your immune system's good, it's fine. And some of them maybe are going to really be good when they jump to you, and they're going to just kick your ass. So the more often we come into contact with those bats, the more likely it is that that little fucker that's good at killing you is going to jump into a human, right? It's Vegas. this is 100% Vegas. The more chances, it's shots on goal, right? It's if you prefer the hockey term, the more times you roll the dice or the more shots you have on goal, the more likely it is that something's going to happen. That thing is going to happen, right? So the more times we come into contact with those bats, or the mosquitoes or whatever it is, because climate change is forcing them to interact with us more, or there's more humans and we're interacting with them more because we're taking up their environment, or any of that stuff, it's more shots on goal. That's all it is. It's more shots on goal. Those bats have a constellation of viruses in them, most of which won't infect humans, but some of which will.
Yeah.
And the more times we interact with those bats, the more likely it is that one of those that will infect humans will jump to humans and infect us. And then we're in coronavirus world, or then we're in rabies world, or then we're in any of these multitude of other zoonotic diseases that jump from animals to humans.
Is that to say though that so technically any animals like monkeys passing on HIV